Markets are open, market money is coming back into equities again, and so everybody is smiling. Well, there are new rules now that are in the works for the South African consumer goods and services industry. Neville Melville, who's the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, joins me to explain the changes. Neville, thank you for coming through. I'm glad I didn't stumble on your first name and surname.
Well done.
So what has changed here?
Well, what will change in the very near future, we hope, is that we'll get a code which makes it compulsory for everyone who's within the consumer goods and services industry to actually subscribe to the code and be a member of and under the jurisdiction of the Ombudsman. Right. So as it stands at present, we have on a voluntary basis most of the larger organisations, what you might refer to as the high street dealers, the Woolworths, the Pick and Pay, Checkers, etc., all the furniture shops, they've all joined on a voluntary basis and they comply with the code and with our processes and rulings. Right. But where we run into problems is the smaller guys and some of the people involved in the cell phone industry. Yeah. And although they may run their own complaint mechanisms and so forth, they don't fall within our domain, and sometimes that makes it very difficult and very frustrating for consumers who send something to us and we try and help them, but often it drags on for months and we get nowhere.
Okay, so let's talk, I mean, this is a huge sector, right? And I'm trying to understand in my head just the kind of companies that operate in this space and the range of goods and services that we're talking here.
Right. Oh, yes, you're quite right. I don't even know the extent of it myself. I know we've had right from the one extreme.
It's almost like everything.
Yeah, we've had wedding arrangements, we've had funerals, we've had flights, we've had, and mostly we get cell phones, furniture, you know, the big price tag items. Because I don't think most people, although we did get one such complaint, most people are not going to go and complain about a litre of milk.
Okay, so I was thinking about it actually, if I buy milk that's gone bad, I should be able to come back and get a replacement. If they don't want to give me a replacement, I must come and complain.
Well, we would hope that would be resolved at a lower level.
Yeah. So it's a huge sector that we're talking about
very much so.
And there's a potential that there could be like a flood of complaints that could just shut down the system and not make it effective.
Well, that was the experience of the National Consumer Commission when it first set up. But we've been going, well, I've been appointed since June last year, and it's fairly steady. Look, obviously, once it's thrown open, then there may be a peak. But I think we're keeping it within manageable limits at present.
Okay. Just in terms of the conduct of the companies themselves, as you said, what you have now is a situation where it's voluntary for these guys to come in and register with you and work with you on resolving complaints, etc. Now it's going to become compulsory. How has been the experience when these guys were working voluntarily with you?
Well, I think most of the bigger entities are concerned about their reputations, and they can separate the problem from the rest of what they do. Whereas with the smaller guys, reputation doesn't seem to be so important, unfortunately, because that's where they should be competing. And the other mistake they make is because it's so close and personal, they take it personally when someone complains, and they get quite angry and quite aggressive and threaten lawyers and all sorts of things like that. Whereas if it's Woolworths, just to use an example, that's a department. It's someone who goes home at 5 who's a professional person who's dealing with the complaints.
Yeah, it's interesting because I follow Pick and Pay on Twitter, and you see some complaints here and there, and you see an immediate response from the company in terms of trying to settle that issue with the complaint. So with the advent of social media, is there an opportunity actually for you and for the companies to try and resolve these things in an amicable way because of the fear of reputational damage?
Yes, it's certainly an opportunity and a serious challenge because people expect immediate resolution of complaints, whereas
but that's a fair thing, right?
Yes, no, certainly.
I've given you money. You've given me a product that's not right. So.
But it's not always possible. I mean, in the game that we play in, for instance, if you've got a couch that's got a problem, it may mean someone going to the back of Beyond to go and inspect it and find that the person's not there because it's a Saturday, they're on a funeral, and so it can go on. You know, so those are the practical challenges that we face.
Now, in terms of the penalties for companies that don't comply, what are you proposing?
Well, what will happen is if they don't sign up, there's something we could report to the National Consumer Commission because it will be a contravention of the Consumer Protection Act in itself. But hopefully people will come on a voluntary basis. That's always the hope, because otherwise if we're going to be at loggerheads with people and fighting the lawyers, then we're going nowhere.
But is it anything that would make them think twice before
Yes, well, certainly they could end up with an administrative fine apart from the apart from the reputational damage.
Yeah.
They could pay up to R1 million fine and have all sorts of other problems that flow from that. They can get compliance notices telling them what they have to do. And it's just not a space that I think that genuine businesses would want to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Neville, I don't want you to be out of a job, but I'm just asking the question here. Are we not over-regulating in South Africa? I mean, we hear the government wants to ban advertising on this and that, and they want to make this compulsory and this and that. Are we in danger of becoming a nanny state here?
Well, I think certainly with this piece of legislation, it's been very careful in the way it's worded, in that it gives people, it empowers them to deal with their complaints, but it doesn't allow them just to abdicate their own responsibility. So, for instance,
the individual.
Yeah. So if they want to enter into an agreement, they have to be provided with the information so they can make an informed decision. So the decision still remains with them, and there are actually a number of responsibilities, although not directly stated, that still sit with the consumer. So if they want to gain the benefit of the rights, they should make themselves aware of what their obligations are as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. While we have you here, we've got about 2 minutes left of the interview. Sure. Just wanted to talk to you about the nature of some of the complaints that you've been dealing with.
Yeah, I think primarily we deal with, well, it follows the whole process. So it could be from how something was advertised, whether it was in stock or not in stock, whether it was at the correct price. And that's a very contentious issue. If you arrive at the store, you sit outside from 4 o'clock in the morning, the doors open and you find that there's nothing in stock. Then you select something, particular furniture, you have an agreed delivery date, grandma's coming on the whatever date, and the bed doesn't arrive. And when it does arrive, there's a problem with the springs. They stick through the mattress or the creaky or whatever. Those are the sort of things.
Are they reasonable? Are South Africans a complaining nation? Or are these reasonable complaints, really?
I think by and large, I think we get some chances as well. And I think we have some people who presume themselves to be more expert in the law than anyone else. But certainly I think by and large people carry on with life, and you know, it takes really something to spur them into making a complaint.
Okay, so the changes that we're talking about, potentially, just repeat for us again. So you're expecting this to come into play in 2015?
Yes, we certainly hoping that it happens before the new financial year from the 1st of March of next year.
The fiscal year,
so we can get that all sorted out. But basically people will have to register with us and will have to contribute towards the running of our office and comply with our processes and cooperate.
There's another little cost added again to your tax and mine. Thanks to Neville Melville. He is the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman, chatting to us about those proposed changes to the consumer goods section.